Well, tonight we are diving into bunkers, sifting through stockpiles, and discussing why America leads the world in doomsday prepping. Now, once considered paranoid, cultish conspiracy theorists, doomsday preppers have become mainstream. In fact, roughly 33% of Americans now identify as being preppers, up from only 6% 15 years ago. This begs the question, with growing political divide, mistrust in our government reaching a fever pitch, and many who believe that the armed conflicts in the Ukraine, Israel, and tensions between China and Taiwan would lead to World War III, are preppers the smart ones? When does being prepared turn to paranoia? And where is the line between practical emergency readiness and unhealthy hoarding and fear? Now, my first guests, Landon and Amanda, say they're prepping their family to survive these apocalyptic times. Take a look.
I'm not prepping for doomsday. We're not going to be here. I'm prepping up until doomsday. I'm surviving the end of times because they are coming. Go look at Noah's Ark. They got on the boat. I am prepping for solar flares, asteroids, government fallout, because our government's going to collapse. This upcoming year, I believe we are going to have total anarchy in the United States of America. Look at our border. It's broke. We are getting invaded. So for about 2 years, I was designing my own bunker for West Virginia. I ran across Vivos Shelters. It's like a 5-star underground hotel.
It gives us a safe place to go and a peace of mind for us and the kids.
I have a gun room at my home. Can't get in there without your fingerprint. My gun collection is probably worth from about $160,000 to $200,000, and it ranges from pistols to ARs to Uzis. I got a Tommy gun, squadron automatic weapon, which is a SAW. It is actually a belt-fed gun, so you can shoot more rounds if you're going into a large crowd. I got 17 cameras in my house. 5 are just in the one room, and all my stuff's kept together. Everything's locked up. I have a military vehicle. I'm not going to be driving a Kia Soul. I'm going to be driving a fortified truck that I can smash through things. And I have my family with me and other friends, and we're all going to have AR-15s.
If something was to happen, we would pack up as quickly as we can and load the truck up and drive to Indiana.
Before I started prepping, I was always anxious. Now, when I see that, I know I have a plan, and prepping gives me peace of mind.
Landon, Amanda, thank you both for being here. Now, you guys are not prepping for a power outage or some bad weather. You're prepping doomsday, true?
True, but there could be multiple events. I'm not so much prepping for the apocalypse because we're not going to be here for that. I'm prepping for all the events that are going to happen before then.
Okay, you said You're with him on this, right?
Yes.
You weren't at first, but you are now.
Yes, I am now, yes.
So you're bought in 100%.
Yes.
Do you think that this is going to happen?
I'm not really sure. I hope it doesn't.
I mean, something's definitely going to happen. We don't know when. We don't know the hour. But it's better be safe than sorry.
Anybody will say that at some level you should have flashlights and drinking water and certain things around your house, but you've gone way beyond that. And you say it's not the apocalyptic event, like if a nuclear bomb is dropped, you say we're not going to survive that, right?
Not if it hits our home, no. But let's just say a nuke hits in Israel. Let's just say Russia bombs Israel. I'm gone. I'm not waiting. And I have a fortress where I'll be able to survive. So the bunkers in people's backyards, they're only going to withstand certain events. I'm prepped to withstand almost every event besides the end of time.
And how far do y'all live from the bunker?
We're in Florida, so
And the bunker
that's
is-
in Indiana.
Wouldn't you want to get something a little closer?
I've thought about it, but these kind of bunkers we have, they're built by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. They were World War II shelters that were built.
Yeah.
And
How long would it take you to get there?
15 hours probably. It could take longer. It could take 2 days, depending on how bad. I mean, what I've done is I took a map and I did 3 different ways to get there.
That's why you got that
100%.
truck.
Yep. My percentages of surviving went up tremendously.
You got that parked at the house?
That's parked at the shop.
Oh, okay. You don't want that parked out in the front yard, right? Yeah. I don't think Robin would go for parking in front of the house. You have a lot of guns.
Yes, quite a few.
You have
That's-
40 to 50 AR-15s and 15 Glock 19s, AK-47s, bulletproof vests.
Yep.
Is that to shoot at an invading army, or is that to hold off the neighbors who are now desperate?
I buy a lot of the same stuff because we are going to have a lot of people that are coming with us, my family. So everybody's going to get a gun. Everybody's going to get a pistol. When we get to the bunker, not everybody shoots guns. We're going to want to train them. We're going to want to give them a gun because one guy can't survive. You got to be stronger together than apart.
Yeah, and like your neighbors aren't doing all this.
No, they don't even know I do it.
They do
Not at
now. That cat's out of the bag. Hate to tell you, but you see these squares around here? Those are cameras, and they're hooked to satellites.
It's
so-
actually a good thing. I mean, you watch the news, look at what's going on in our border. We're getting invaded. This is a good plan to have. Everybody should have this plan.
All right, look, we're gonna take a break. But before we go to break, I wanna ask each of our audience members a question. You have a voting device under your seat, so grab that. So after watching so far, what kind of prepper are you? You have 4 choices. 1, I'm not. 2, I have an emergency kit and some food supplies. 3, I have a bug out plan. And 4, I have a bunker. Which one is closest in describing you? Results are in. 51.6 are option number 1, which is I'm not a prepper at all. Number 2 was I have an emergency kit and some food supplies. 40% of you were that choice. 6.7% says I have a bug out bag and a multiple month supply of food. And 1.3 of you said I have a bunker. We're gonna talk about this more. All right, we'll be right back.
We want families. We want people who got skill sets.
But no single men?
No, not at all. That would just cause chaos.
Yeah. I wouldn't be accepted, right? You don't like older people. Well, national surveys reveal that 1/3 of Americans are stockpiling food, water, guns, ammunition to prepare to survive what they see as the inevitable downfall of this country. Now, Landon and Amanda say they own shares in a 10,000 square foot, 2-story underground bomb shelter that looks like a really 4-star hotel.
I was sitting on the couch and I turned to my wife and I said, hey, you're not gonna believe it, but I found a luxury 5-star hotel underground bunker. It's called Vivos, Indiana.
Next thing you know, we're flying out and doing a tour of the bunker.
We have a security team, we have doctors, we have nurses. We can perform surgeries, we can grow plants for salads and tomatoes underground. We have enough food to feed 80 people for 2 years, but if everybody doesn't come up, that could be 5 or 8 years. You have to talk to doctors because you don't want to get somebody who has a mental disorder and they go down there and tear everybody apart. So have a jail down there for that reason.
I was shocked. Landon kept reassuring me, this is gonna be okay, you know, this is where we're gonna go if something is to ever happen.
I put in a total of $172,000 to purchase this underground shelter.
It is expensive, but there's no price too high to be able to protect our family.
The bunker that you have is not just kind of a storage facility underground. You're talking about 4-foot concrete walls, right? I mean,
Yes.
this is substantial. It could withstand a 20-kiloton nuclear blast, not a direct hit, of course, but it could withstand a substantial event. And you say 80 people would be in this one?
Yes, if they can get there.
If they could get there.
If they get there. They're spread all over the United States. There's still shares left.
Was this expensive to buy a share?
$25,000 is what I got into it for per share,
Okay, and per share is that's a person.
per person.
Okay, and are you required to bring your own supplies?
You're not required, but it's beneficial. You know, we can only stock so much. But most definitely, like, you get your own room, and there's families. We want families. We don't want single people. We want people who got skill sets.
But no single men?
No, not at all.
Why?
Because that would cause that's not what we're looking for in there. That would just cause chaos.
Yeah, I wouldn't be accepted, right?
You might, you and your wife.
Well, but you don't like older people.
No, that doesn't bother me.
No, but they're not preferred in this community.
It's kind of like Noah's Ark. They had the boat, they had everything in there. We allow the pets, and our goal is to repopulate if something happens. That is the vision here in this exact shelter.
And everybody has to bring something to the table.
Yes, 100%.
To repopulate, and so they got to have skill sets and bring supplies and have something to contribute.
Of course.
Yeah. What made you uncomfortable about this at first?
I've never been into, weapons, and I'm not into the worldly news and stuff. So when I met Landon and he was into all that, it just sort of, I was nervous, and I was like, okay, how am I going to deal with this? But I did. We've been together 8 years, and it just sort of came naturally, but it was, scary at first.
Have you become proficient in firearms?
Not yet, no.
Not yet? Does that bother you, scare you?
It does, yes.
And I asked earlier, are these firearms to fight off an invading army, or are they to fight off people that didn't prepare and want to get in and breathe the air and eat the groceries and all that you've prepared for?
Those weapons are to fight off any intruder. It could be an army. Maybe our army goes against us. I don't know. That's
But it could be
your neighbors.
It could be your neighbors.
Could be anybody. Yep.
Because you got 200 guns down there, including a tripod, belt-fed machine gun. I'm wondering who you're going to shoot.
That's more to get to the place. So when we go through, have you anarchy, the riots in New York? You see that kind of stuff? Could you imagine our family and our children in that military vehicle coming through Atlanta, and people are trying to get in the vehicle? That's what it's used for. I'm going to be out of my neighborhood pretty quick, because in our community we have a network and an email network. So when things happen, we have people that are within the Army Corps that they still work with the Marines. So they let us know, hey, look what's going on in Israel. So we can leave when we want.
Yeah. Landon says prepping is a man thing, and he spoon feeds information to Amanda because women do not grasp prepping and scare easily. So I'm curious what Robin's thoughts are on that. I'll ask her when we come back. Are there specific things you haven't told her?
Yeah, a lot about the wars and just everything that makes me do what I do. I just don't want to scare her.
Yeah, do you have one of those, what do they call them, televisions?
My squadron automatic weapon is a belt-fed gun. So if you need to do crowd control, that is one of my biggest pieces in my prepping, my survival.
Sometimes I'll watch Landon. He'll get one of his guns, unloaded, obviously, and then Grayson will have Nerf guns, and they will just run through the house and pretend like they're in a war. They're playing, but they're also learning at the same time.
And this truck here is made to go through just about anything. If it's not computerized, it can experience an EMP blast. This big beast here will run.
Prepping gives me more peace of mind than anything else.
Tonight we're talking about prepping for an apocalyptic event, and I'm here with Landon and Amanda, who recently bought $4,000 worth of food for their underground bunker. How much is $4,000 worth of food in terms of length of time it would sustain?
So it's MREs that I purchased to bring to the bunker, because you can literally eat one and it'll last you all day.
Yeah, have you eaten any of these?
I tried some.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
They're not the best.
Did it gag a maggot? Or
It was pretty gross. But
pretty gross?
I mean, if I had to, that was what I had to eat to survive, I definitely would.
You could do it. You say you have to spoon feed this to women in general because they don't grasp this. Would you? What?
I'm already offended.
What do you think about that?
Well, I am offended. I would really resent the fact that you were spoon feeding me information that affected our entire family and our life and our future. So no, I would not like that.
You wouldn't want to be spoon fed?
No.
Information about
No.
our future and survival?
I would actually want to know more than you did.
Yeah.
Because we're in this together. So I want to know everything that's going on. because, again, we're a team, and it affects our family, our future. So, no, I want to know everything.
Yeah.
I can handle it.
I would bet all I could gather she's a better shot than you are. She's very firearms proficient.
That's good.
I'll ask the women in the crowd, would you want to know what was going on straight up? Yeah. Raise your hand if you would. Yeah. Could you handle it? Yes. Yeah. I mean, are there specific things you haven't told her?
Yeah, a lot about the wars and just everything that makes me do what I do. And that's what I've tried to talk to people in my family. This is why I have this feeling, because they just don't want to hear it. Oh, I don't want to hear that. Well, you need to. Look what's going on.
Well, apparently you don't need to, because you're not telling her.
Well, I've tried to talk to her, and I just don't want to scare her.
Yeah, do you have one of those, what do they call them, televisions?
Yes. I watch the news every night.
And I watch a little bit with him too.
Yeah, because you can gather information, and you can go to the internet and gather even more information. Some of it's even true. If I were you, I'd want to know what the hell was going on. You have children, right?
Absolutely.
And you want to protect them and know what's going on, because if
some stuff is scary that's going on in this world with our borders and our wars going on and our government fight with each other. And
she's listening.
No, I know, and I've listened, and I've learned over the years, but I mean, I guess I'm more like, I don't want something to happen. So I'm trying not to believe, like this could happen,
It's real. Something's going to happen. We just don't know when. Could be this year, could be next year. It's better to be prepared, and it's better to have a good, solid plan. Know where you're going, solid foundation, food, weapons, ammunition to support your family and where you're going.
Are you prepared to shoot the neighbors if need be?
I have used a gun before, yes. I mean,
but not on the neighbors.
No, if I needed to, yes, I could.
Okay, you would shoot the neighbors if you needed to.
If I had to, yeah.
Yeah. Well, y'all are going to be popular on your street when you get home. No, I know what you're saying. If it comes down to it, you have to protect your family.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we're going to talk to a former military intelligence officer who says he started his own survival community and above-ground bunkers. Because if the president and Congress are kept safe in a doomsday scenario, why can't average Americans as well? We're going to meet him when we come back.
Bad guys can design more lethal viruses. 1 billion may die of the virus, more will die from the collapse that results. If you're not prepared and a collapse occurs, you suffer the consequences.
Dr. Drew Miller spent over 20 years as a military intelligence officer specializing in threat assessment to the U.S. He says he started prepping individually, but realized that for his family to survive, he needed a community. So he started Fortitude Ranch 10 years ago. Take a look.
I served in the Air Force on active duty as an intelligence officer. As an intelligence officer, we track threats, and the threats are actually increasing. We have powers that can make a threat, more so in the bioweapons era today. That's really a much bigger threat than nuclear war. Bad guys can design more lethal viruses. Modify H5N1, for example. When H5N1 becomes human transmissible, 1 billion may die of the virus, more will die from the collapse that results. When you're starving, you'll do what's necessary to keep you and your family alive. And a lot of people, if necessary, will kill to survive. I've been a prepper for about 30 years. I looked into survival communities, so we set up Fortitude Ranch as an organized survival community business. I've been with Fortitude Ranch. We started it up a little over a decade ago. Our staff is largely former military people, a lot of former law enforcement officers. In a collapse, when that occurs, we'll go through a lot more weapons training and defending behind our walls practice. We have now a big group to raise food, guard the compound, keep everyone alive so we can survive a long collapse. The reason we don't like to be all underground is because there's a virus going around. You could all die from the virus. You can't just hide out in a bunker. There's really no downside to prepping, and the upside is it can save your life. There's a lot of bad things that I think could happen this year, but you need to get started right away. If you're not prepared and a collapse occurs, then you're going to have to suffer the consequences, which could be death for you and your family.
Drew, you say there are over 50 scenarios where the U.S. collapses. What's on the short list?
Well, Dr. Phil, there's over 50 that we track threats, and any threat that's really bad could lead to a collapse, meaning the economy's not functioning, widespread loss of law and order. The one that's worried me the most is bioengineering. So H5N1, which is still called avian or bird flu. You shouldn't call it that anymore. Right now, if you were to catch H5N1, it's 60% lethal. So it's nothing like COVID-19. And when that happens, no one's going to work. There's not going to be any food production or delivery. People will start starving. They're going to start looting and stealing to survive, and that occurs. But it's not just bioengineering. Our electric system is a disaster waiting to happen. It's the Achilles heel of the United States, and all our enemies know it. Artificial intelligence. I mean, Elon Musk and folks like that, every day they're talking about the artificial intelligence threat. We have municipal water systems, and we're highly vulnerable to a collapse, and the government is doing absolutely nothing to prepare for it other than protecting themselves, or to even warn people that, hey, you need to get prepared. Our government is grossly irresponsible.
So what do you think people should do about this?
One, I would encourage your government to require them to harden the electric grid. They've had decades to do it, haven't yet. There was an effort in Texas last year to get the Texas grid hardened. Those introduced, Speaker got it killed. His former chief of staff was a lobbyist for the utility industry. This happens over and over again. Legislators' top priority is getting reelected, not working to prepare us to survive a disaster. And I'm in favor of term limits as a result. We need to stop elected officials focusing on reelection, should come in for one term, do the job of protecting us, and get out of office. That's one change I would like to see made.
One of my theories is that we have people in charge of solving problems that aren't really interested in solving the problem, because they solve the problem, then they're out of a job.
North Korea today could take down the U.S. electric grid. All they need is one long-range ICBM. They've got them. Nuclear weapon does blasts, thermal radiation. These were designed to have maximum EMP output. So a small yield weapon of North Korea going off basically anywhere over the U.S. at a wide range in latitudes, doesn't have to be accurate, can take down our electric grid for at least a year, possibly several years.
It seems to me that if we put real incentives on solving some of these problems, that we'd get the problem solved. Well, we're going to take a break, and so you can all be depressed. When we come back, Drew's going to tell us more about why he started Fortitude Ranch, and I also want to hear why he thinks Landon's underground bunker could very well be a death trap, not a safe zone. We'll be right back. Drew says that Fortitude Ranch was built and priced for middle-class families as a place for people to get to survive. Fortitude Ranch is not a location. There are many, correct?
Yes, sir.
How many?
We have 7 now operating in the U.S. and more coming now. We're franchising now to open up more rapidly. If there's a pandemic, people aren't going to go to nuclear reactors to turn them off, and you don't just turn the key, as you know. That water has to keep flowing. They have a lot of people to shut them down. So if people aren't coming in a pandemic to a nuclear reactor, there's a good chance you're going to have nuclear reactors that have accidents, blow up, release radiation. So underground facilities for radiation shielding are worthwhile. That's one they just showed on the video behind you. That's an underground facility.
And you're concerned about vulnerability of living in there, and you say these underground bunkers, like Landon is invested in fact, have great vulnerability. Why?
So you have to defend on the surface. If you don't defend on the surface, people can discover you underground, and you've got to have air vents. They'll cover up your air vents. You know, if you've got windmills and solar panels, they're on the surface. You have to be on the surface to protect your facility from a marauder group, or you won't have one.
Okay, so somebody can come in, cut off the air supply, trap them down there, and suffocate them, and then go in and take all their supplies.
Correct. But they don't have to do that. They can defend on the surface. That's what you should do.
So you got to come out
Yes, sir.
and fight them off.
Correct.
Yeah. Is this affordable for the average American?
Yes, sir, it is. So we're dual purpose. Our motto is prepare for the worst, enjoy the present. So in good times, you can come to Fortitude Ranch as a member and vacation there. But in bad times, we turn into a survival community. But the cost is affordable because, number one, our facilities are not, deep underground ICBM silos. Those are very expensive. We don't have a lot of fancy equipment, and our rooms are not. It's not fancy rooms. We're pretty rustic. So for a couple $1,000s down payment, and then a couple $1,000s a year, depending on your family size going forward, you can afford to be a member. So that's one of the ways we tried to design this to be affordable for the middle class.
Okay, I want to ask you all another question. So grab your voting device again. And the first question is, how much food do you have stored? 2 days worth, a week's worth, a month's worth, 3 to 6 months worth, or 1 year or more's worth of food. Results are in. So 7.3 have 2 days worth, 32.5% of you have a week's worth, 38.5 have a month's worth of food, 18.4% have 3 to 6 months worth of food, and 3.4 have a year's worth of food. So that's interesting. Okay, next. We're going to add a prepper who says if his community keeps being so secretive, people will keep thinking they're insane. You don't want to miss this.
All empires have fallen. It's inevitable that the American empire will fall.
My next guest says he grew up around a religion where being self-sufficient rather than relying on the government is encouraged. He says that his upbringing shaped his current prepping lifestyle.
Prepping for me started on 9/11. That was the day everyone in this country realized bad things happen to people. The world is a dangerous place. When I was about 14, my father gave me a book that was about a group of people coming together to prepare for the collapse of society. It gave me a lot of starting blocks of things to think about, like how to defend myself. I have a larger selection of tools to choose from, whether it's a combat shotgun, long-range rifles. For people who aren't prepping, having 2,000 to 3,000 rounds is really alarming, but in more rural areas, that's a weekend of target shooting. With the MREs I have on hand, they would last me 2 to 3 months. MRE stands for Meals Ready to Eat. They are just meals that are long-term shelf sustainable, like 12 to 25 years. Today, my main focus is on protection and transportation. I studied cultures like the Australian outback, where they have to go hundreds of miles without any kind of resupply. So I bought a Suburban and set it up following the way they set up their vehicles, with extra gas, extra supplies. I feel like it's incredibly naive to not prepare to some degree. All empires have fallen. It's inevitable that the American empire will fall. The best time to start prepping is yesterday. The second best time is today.
You've been listening to everything we've been talking about here,
Yes, sir.
right? Is this consistent with your mindset and ideology?
In general, yes. I think it's a little out of touch for most Americans. This gentleman mentioned being able to spend $2,000 to $3,000 to come to his ranch, but 45% of Americans don't have $1,000 saved up for if their transmission breaks down.
And you grew up in a community, a religious community, where self-sufficiency and growing your own food, not relying on the government, being kind of insular in the community was a way of life, right?
Yes, sir.
And you think that serves you well?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And you talk about something called operational security. What do you mean by that?
Operational security is just the concept of keeping your resources and supplies secret so that you are blending in to protect those resources.
You say even so, within the community, there's a lot of distrust?
In my experience, yes. Like, communities don't talk typically within the overarching community. You train with the people you're close to or practice skills with the people you're close to, but there's not a lot of cross-community training. I think a lot of people or a lot of individual communities are scared to be labeled like a militia.
One of the things that you two have in common, have talked about, is lots of guns and lots of ammunition.
They're tools just like any other. I can hunt with an AK or an AR, and if I need to protect myself with it, I can.
Sir, if I could jump in.
Please.
You cannot survive in a big city in a collapse. When the grid's down, no municipal water systems, any kind of disaster, if there's no food deliveries, you can't survive in a city. So you got to leave. So where are you going to go? Everyone's going to think, oh, I'll run to the forest and survive there. Yeah, tens of millions, hundreds of millions potentially running into our forests. You're going to be looking for deer to hunt. Well, I can tell you, as soon as the collapse starts, every Fortitude Ranch, we're shooting every animal we can, deer, et cetera, wild boar in Texas. We're shooting everything we can, and we're making jerky out of it to get more food. And a lot of people are going to do that. So by the time you get from the city into the forest, there's not going to be a whole lot of deer left, most likely. And there's going to be a lot of other people there with you in the forest with the same plan. I got to try to survive out here. And there's just not enough food out there to keep people going. So sooner or later, you're going to run into another marauder group or other starving people. And so that's why he does have a lot of great weapons. And the people who want to outlaw AR-15s and military-capable weapons, you know, from the prepper perspective, they're lunatics. They're working to help marauder groups if they do that. But whether natural or man-manipulated means or a laboratory accident, Wuhan, for example, it could happen tomorrow. And when that happens, it's going to be, if it's H5N1, it's the worst disaster in mankind's history, and massive starvation and people trying to stay alive through marauding.
And you say the death rate will be what?
I think depending on how long it lasts, most of the population will die in those situations. They'll starve to death, or they'll be killed by other people trying to get food.
How is your ranch going to survive a nuclear blast?
So we withstand nuclear blast by staying away from targets. So we're in really remote rural areas. You could drop a nuclear weapon 10 kiloton, you know, Hiroshima size, directly over me, and with 3 feet of earth, I'm okay. That's all I need.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people have questioned, why would you want to survive a nuclear holocaust? But the fact is, you can survive.
You can, and you'll rebuild. I mean, the fallout, yes, it contaminates, but it doesn't permanently destroy the soil, and it's not everywhere.
All right, next, a man who spent 3 years embedded with extreme preppers. He says there is one thing that actually shocked him about them. We're going to find out what that is after the break. Dr. Bradley Garrett spent 3 years studying extreme preppers and even wrote a book about it called Bunker Building for the End of Times. Doctor, you spent a lot of time, 3 years, with different groups. And you said that something really jumped out. It was kind of common among these groups. What was it?
I spent 3 years, went to 8 different countries, interviewed about 100 people. Some of them, as you say, were quite extreme in their preparations. Others were worried about more on the practical prepping side, you know, putting things together so they could get through a blackout for 3 days, learning how to grow their own food. But the thing that really struck me is I expected people to be anxious and paranoid and sort of obsessed with the idea of being able to mitigate these future disasters. What I actually found is that most of the preppers that I ran into, they were actually full of hope. Because if you don't believe that there's going to be a future, there's no point in preparing for it. So when I spoke to them about their preparations, they said, look, you know, this gives me a sense of peace and security, but it also is altruistic in some ways, because if you've got your preparations in place, you're taking some strain off of the system. if something does go wrong. You don't need to be rescued anymore. And in fact, you might be in a position that you can help someone else because you've got your preparations in place. So, this is the beauty of doing research, especially long-term research, is often you end up learning something you absolutely didn't expect to learn.
Yeah, you weren't looking for that, but you found out a completely different mindset. When you were talking to these people in these different countries, was there a consistent belief system in terms of what was going to trigger all of this preparation they had done?
People were prepping for a wide range of things. And of course, in different countries, you might have more of a social safety net, or you might have more influence from the state. In Switzerland, for instance, they've got space in their bunkers for every person in the country. And that was mandated by a law in 1963 at the height of the Cold War. They started building that infrastructure. In the United States, it wasn't feasible. The country's too big, we had too many people. In terms of what they're preparing for, it's a wide range. A lot of people were very concerned about the climate crisis. That's more of a practical prepping day-to-day scenario. And others are worried about an EMP or nuclear war, much larger scale concerns.
In some of these countries where guns are not so prolific, how were they going to defend all of the things that they had accumulated to survive with? Was that a concern there the way it is here?
In many of the places that I visited, there was an expectation that they weren't just prepping for themselves, they were prepping for the community. And so the resources that they had stockpiled would be shared out. And the expectation was if everyone is prepping, everyone's in a better position to help everyone else.
Did you come away from this being more optimistic, or did you have more hope after being around these people, or did you think they were overreacting, paranoid? How did you come away from it?
A lot of people were overreacting to what I thought were essentially conspiracy theories. But I'll tell you, I lived in an apartment that I was renting before I wrote this book. Now I live on a 5-acre ranch. There was so much practicality in what they were telling me about becoming more self-sufficient, understanding where your energy comes from, where your water comes from, being able to stockpile enough food to get yourself through just a small period of time. I think that's something that all of us can take away. And I do think that before I wrote this book, I had an unreasonable expectation that someone else was going to take care of me in a disaster. And many Americans have experienced this throughout COVID. So I think it was a wake-up call for a lot of people going through that and realizing that there might not be someone there to save you in the event of a terrible disaster.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I'm so glad you did that. And we're going to put a link to the book on our website so people can find it and read it and see what's there, because it's interesting observations. And I think I want to ask the audience one final question. After being part of this conversation, what will you do? So 1, will you store more food? 2, purchase weapons and ammo? 3, build a bunker or buy into one? Or 4, do nothing different? All right, well, the results are in, and 49.4% says, I'm going to store more food. 10.7 is, I'm going to buy some weapons. 4.3, I'm going to build or buy into a bunker. And 35% of you say, no, I'm not going to do anything. I think that says that this conversation has had an impact on you. And I'm glad. I mean, it's a provocative conversation, right?
Yeah.
I've written a book called We've Got Issues: How All Americans Can Stand Strong for Our Country's Soul and Sanity. And it takes a much more optimistic view of the future of mankind. Fortunately, this is not an either-or scenario. My attitude is that we can fix what is broken in this country. We have issues, there's no doubt about that, but the human spirit really burns bright. And if we commit, if we decide to live several of the principles that I set forth for a healthy society, I believe we can heal the divide that's in America. That doesn't say that you shouldn't be prepared. Absolutely. I think it makes sense to do a level of preparedness that makes you feel good about what you're doing. I say be who you are on purpose. That's my number one principle. And that means you live with intention. If you want to prepare, if you want to do the things that are important to you, then do them. Be who you are on purpose. The second principle I have is focus on solving problems rather than winning arguments. We got too many people trying to win arguments, and we need to stop that and start working on solving problems. And that is a very different mindset. And it requires that you do the ninth thing I list in there, which is work hard to understand the way others see things. We really, really have to start listening to each other. I thank you for being here tonight, and we'll see you next time.